Welcome, everyone. So we're going to kick off the webinar. I think we have a quorum. So welcome again. My name is Riaz Nakuda. I'm the VP of Customer Solutions here at Veridion. And I'm really happy you're able to join us today this is our inaugural webinar. And today what we hope to share with you is the Veridion story, and also share with you some use cases as it pertains to the procurement and commercial insurance space in terms of how they're using our data to drive better decisions. And so when we think about the reality facing businesses today, they're really challenged across a number of different areas. And these are some examples here where if we look at carriers in the commercial insurance space, they are challenged by the fact that there's excessive amounts of premium leakage, which is leading to higher claims and also lower profits on their potential profits and losses on their end. If we also look at the supply chain and procurement space, we know there's been disruptions happening. There's also geopolitical risks on exports. These all have impacts. And so as a business leader, you need to have ideas, and you need to come up with solutions in terms of addressing these problems. And this is where we feel that having the right underlying data can really help to address these issues. And we look at this in 4 steps. We need to be able to really replicate the human research, and we need to be able to do that at scale using technology. We also need to be able to acquire credible data sources that we can use to make our analysis and to capture the right data. And of course, we need to ensure that that data is of high quality, it's accurate, and it's updated frequently. And so that is what we do at Veridion. We try to mimic how humans research using machine learning and AI. The way we approach this is by indexing billions of websites, web pages each week. We then use a number of machine learning models to identify what sources that are relevant, that describe what a business does. So this could be things like their websites, their social media outlets, press releases. And from there, we have additional models that start to extract key attributes around the business. And, in the example shared here, this is where the models have identified a product page related to a business, and it starts to extract key information such as the name, descriptions, and so on. However, we do this across multiple data points: legal names, commercial names, locations, activities of the business. And given all that information, we can also apply additional models to start to understand how these particular organizations are classified, which is an important point. And so we do this, every week. We're attempting to capture every company which has an active digital presence. We've discovered over 75 million operating companies across 200 countries. So there are multiple language models involved in our process to extract information in companies which are, websites which are non-English language. And we use this information again to derive deep insights around those businesses. So if we look at the breakdown, really our only restriction in terms of the type of company that we're able to extract and profile is really dependent on how pervasive the web presence of those businesses are in different countries. And so the chart here illustrates, of course, in the US, we have over 20 million companies. In the UK, it's roughly 4.5 million. And again, this obviously changes every week depending on which businesses are rediscovered. and we are also able to track changes in those businesses as well on a weekly basis. So the next chart illustrates some of the attributes, the data points that we're extracting on and deriving on each business. So we have the industry classifications, and we build out classifications based off the standard industry codes such as NAICS and SIC, as well as we have insurance-specific classifications such as NCCI for workers' comp, IBC, which is the Canadian Insurance Bureau codes. We also extract key information around the company, and this includes, the basic firmographic information such as legal names, trade names, locations. We also get size and revenue of the business where those are disclosed. The technographics, that's an interesting data point where we're able to extract key technologies that the business has on their website, which can be used in a number of downstream applications. We also extract product and services, and we classify these back to their UNSPSC codes, which is a common taxonomy for labeling product and services. And finally, we're starting to extract data around ESG, so sustainability indicators, such as looking at the commitments that a business has around their ESG practices, as well as looking at news, what's being said about the business in terms of a sustainability context, as well as other topics. So really, our technology is focused on really profiling a business, but it can be extended to other data points as well as needed. So once we have this, massive amount of company information, we can apply this into a number of different applications. Three core areas that we're focused on is in the underwriting space, specifically commercial insurance, supplier data management and discovery for procurement, and in the market intelligence space. The information can be delivered through our APIs. So we have two APIs. One is our match and enrichment API, which allows users to input the business name and an address, and we have our own entity resolution algorithms that will then determine if there's a match within our company records. And then we have a search API, which allows users to discover businesses based off certain characteristics. And we'll demonstrate this in a few moments in the context of a few use cases. So let's move into the use cases, and tying this back to the first chart that we saw. And so the first mission here is around supplier discovery. And so we know that there's cold storage. It's a big issue right now, especially in the pharmaceutical space. And so our hero in this story is a global category manager who's looking for warehouse and transportation. And this category manager works for a large U.S. pharmaceutical company. So the quest is to find cold storage suppliers who offer both, who are vertically integrated, or offer both transportation and storage. They want to also have a mandate to increase supply chain resiliency to reduce their category costs, and they want to drive towards sustainable suppliers. So they need to go out and discover this. Now, the current workflow would look something like this. They would either call up their network and try to find recommendations from peers. They may attend certain trade shows or industry groups, or most commonly, they'll use Google and they'll conduct a search engine query to try to find these companies. Now, the issue with this is it's time consuming. You may not find all the suppliers that are in the universe, and there's opportunity costs in terms of that. So what if we can improve this process? If we can improve this using better data, using more effective ways to search. We could increase our supply chain resiliency. Can we accelerate our time to market? Can we be better stakeholders to our business partners as well? So we'll demonstrate how this process works, but effectively what we're looking to do is to scan the Veridion universe of over 75, 80 million companies and really quickly develop a short list. This typically could take weeks to develop if you're using legacy methods. We'll demonstrate how we can do this within seconds. So let's go to the demonstration piece. I'm going to switch over to an application right now called Postman. And so you should be seeing a Postman application. And this allows us to really visualize the output of our APIs. So I mentioned we have two main APIs. One is our enrichment API, and one is our search API. So for supplier discovery, we're going to focus on our search, utilizing our search API to discover businesses. Now, as a category manager, my first inclination may be to look at suppliers within my existing supplier base. So I already have suppliers under contract or pre-qualified. I want to look for these I want to look within that existing network to see if I have any cold chain suppliers. And so I set up my query. And so what we set up here as our first parameter is we focus on all our suppliers, and I'd focus them by utilizing their website as the key. Next is setting up the query that I intend to run and discover. So this is where I focus on the company products, and I start to build out this query. So if you remember back to the quest, we're looking for cold storage providers. So that's my first set of parameters in here, and they need to have warehousing capabilities, as well as they need to be in shipping and logistics. So they need to have both those particular capabilities. I can also exclude certain terms that I don't want, and I can focus on a specific geographic region. In this case, I'm looking at companies which have operations in the US, may not be headquartered there, but they need to have operations there. So now I quickly search my existing supplier universe to see if anybody matches that criteria. And here we go. We got two suppliers. So out of the 20 or 30 suppliers here, we get two, as well as we get the evidence as to what they do. So we get the headline, we get the content, and we're able to go out to that specific website. So it's similar to the current experience you might have using Google. We're providing you the evidence here, and now you can go and actually now start to see the full business profile on this particular supplier, and then have outreach to them. Now, suppose we need to add to the supplier list. So we have two, but to make it a competitive sort of RFP process, we may need to look outside of our current supplier list and discover new suppliers. So this is where I utilize the same search API, but instead of focusing on a supplier list, I'm letting the search occur on all suppliers. So again, it's the same setup, parameterizations, but this time I'm actually looking for one additional parameter here. Remember that sustainability sustainability objective I had? So I've listed that here. So do they do reverse logistics? Do they deal with renewable energy? So I really want to find suppliers there. So this is a fairly, think about this as a fairly complex search, probably something that would be difficult to do through traditional means. And here I'm able to now search through the millions of companies we have. And here we go. It returns 29 companies. And here is the evidence: cold storage, their solutions. They do, warehousing fulfillment. They do reverse logistics. So here are 29 candidates which fulfill that entire criteria list. And now I can further refine these if I want by adding in other search parameters such as revenue, employee counts, D&I, ISO certifications, and really maybe come down to one or two or five suppliers that I really want to take into a short list. So that was quest one and completed. So I'm going to flip back to the presentation. Stop sharing. Go back to the presentation here. And now we're going to look at, our mission 2, which is focused on the commercial insurance space, reducing premium leakage. And so our hero here is an underwriter who works for a large commercial insurance carrier. The quest is to quickly validate the locations and classifications of a business, and then to perform a deeper dive into identifying underwriting risks or hazard flags that may warrant a different treatment of the policy. So the current workflow, as it sits today, is that you may have a commercial business who self-declares on an application, or what they do, or the underwriter may have to call that individual directly, and they may also go and try to do a online search on their own to try to discover what the business does. Now the problems with this, again, it's manual. It can be error prone. They may miss certain pieces of information, and ultimately what it could lead to is the incorrect coverage being offered on a policy. So let's see how we can expedite this process using Veridion. So I'm going to switch screens again. Back into Postman. And let's go through the commercial insurance use case. So the first step is we need to conduct a business check. So imagine we get a new applicant, they come in, we want to, again, determine what that applicant does. And so they could self-declare, but we want to validate what they've maybe self-declared. So in this case, the payload going into our API is simply 2 of these 5 parameters. We need either a legal name or commercial name, and we need an address. It can be a partial address. In this case, I've just specified the country. And so now we send this to our API, and it goes through a matching algorithm on our end that we've developed, and it comes back with a record if it finds a suitable match. And so what we see here at the top is our match score and the match method, which gives us confidence in terms of, is this record a record that should be trusted? In our case, anything above a 0.6 generally indicates a really strong match. And so now we have all the details about this company that we've been able to extract based off its digital presence. So this includes things like the commercial name, the different legal names, importantly, the location of the business. We also have on certain locations, geocoded information, which allows carriers also to combine this with other geocoded data as well, climate data, other property data. We also bring back when it was founded, the employee count, the size. This information is currently not derived. It is information that's been disclosed by the business. We also have a description around what the business does, business activities, business tags. I'll come back to this in a second, but this is really a deeper way of looking at what the business does based off how it describes its online presence, or based off how it's described online. We also have categorizations, contact details, all the social presence of the business. If they have a LinkedIn, a Facebook page, oftentimes we get companies who are, just start off on a social media platform. They don't actually have a dedicated URL. Technologies, so I mentioned this. where we're able to scan and understand the technologies of a website. And in this case, an interesting flag might be here. This particular coffee shop has a e-commerce platform collecting data from which may have a triage process on the carrier side, or a intent signal for maybe cyber insurance or some other type of policies that they can offer. And then, of course, we have the classification. So this is very important in the quote to bind process, or in the book management process, and really understanding what a business does. And we build this off of, again, machine learning is predicted. So the activities of the business in the machine learning model will use that to then determine the right, classifications. And so we have the standard industry classifications, as well as specific classifications for the insurance side, such as the NCCI for workers' comp, as well as IBC for the Canadian insurance side. Now, I mentioned at the top that we update our data weekly. We rediscover what's out there. We are able to see changes in that on a weekly basis if a company has new activities, new products and services, new locations, so on. And this is where the timestamps at the bottom here, the created date and the last updated date, become very useful. So the created date is when we first discovered this business. We're a 4-year-old company, so you likely won't see anything prior to 2019. And then we have the updated date, which indicates if something has materially changed on the record. So looking at this record from the carrier standpoint, I'm confident that this is a coffee shop. I have additional details on the location, all information I can either validate on an application form, or it can be used on a straight pass-through process. The next step is, based off that class, I may have additional risk flags that I'm looking for to understand a deeper level of detail on the business. So in this case, knowing that it was a coffee shop in that class, I have a set of hazard flags or risk flags that I look at from a carrier standpoint. Now, the carriers can input. Each carrier may have different flags that they look at. So this is an example, but within the Veridion API, within this API, you can input your own hazard flags as well. So what I've done here, pardon me, is I'm focusing on, again, the applicant by its website, and now I've put in the hazard flags. And so for a coffee shop, what I'm looking for is, do they serve alcohol or liquor? Do they have a patio? Do they have, table service, kitchen, food, CBD? These are all things that might indicate a special treatment for this particular type of applicant. And so now what I do is I'm scanning the company's profile. And here we go. We've identified that this particular coffee shop has CBD infused coffee. So now I can triage this in the appropriate way. So ultimately, what this has helped me to do is better identify what the business, what class the business is in, and also identify additional risks on the business, which will lead to a better better coverage, and ultimately a reduction in premium leakage. So that concludes sort of the tour of Veridion. So again, just recapping, we discussed how we manufacture our data, how we're able to index the web, identify information around a business, and extract that information at scale. And then we've also talked about a couple different applications, both within the procurement space around supplier discovery, and in the commercial insurance space around improving and accelerating the quote to bind process, as well as the book management process. So with that, I'd like to maybe open the floor to questions. Okay. If you do have a question, feel free to drop it into the chat. Yeah. So thank you. There's a question here. Can you tell us a bit more about what it's like to integrate these APIs? I'm guessing Postman isn't the ideal way to actually use the data. Yeah. So typically, we are an API first company. So typically, our customers are integrating the APIs into their workflows. So in the case of the commercial insurance carrier, it could be integrating those APIs into their underwriting workbenches or their existing technology platforms to provide additional data points. And again, with the on the procurement side, it would be the same in terms of integrating these APIs into perhaps an existing workflow, or they may elect to build a UI or visualization layer on top of it. Any other questions? Yeah, so what we were demonstrating, so the question here is regarding the UI, what's the typical response time for API calls? And so the demonstrations we just went through, those are based off a production environment. So you can see the latency, how quick the responses are. But generally the default is for the match and enrich API. We're looking at 5 companies per second. And then on the search API, it can be a bit more, but depending on how complex the query is. But as you can see, even with the the cold chain query, which had 5 different parameters in it, it was quite quick. Okay. So yeah, with that, I'd like to. There's another question that's come in. Yeah, so the main two are within the procurement and insurance space. We also deal with market intelligence. There's another vertical called market intelligence, which you may have seen on the slides, and that one really focuses on helping businesses who have large, data assets. Could be private company data assets who need to enrich those with additional data points that Veridion has. So it could be to increase fill rates or to add some net new data points that are that may add value to their overall business. So the question here is regarding the search API. Is there a limit to the granularity of the keywords I can search for? And so the answer is no. You can. It's free form. You can input as granular as a keyword as you'd like. Can go down to the product level, part number level, all the way up to high level capabilities of the business. Another question is coming. Are there other insights on businesses that Veridion has which might be helpful to procurement professionals that you haven't touched on? Yeah, so some other insights that might be useful could be around locations. We touched on that a little bit on the insurance side, but understanding the locations of a business, it could be important to procurement to see where and who you're doing business with, especially from a risk perspective. Also understanding we touched on the product and services, but understanding those product and services, understanding additional sort of structures of the business as well, right? Who corporate hierarchies and so on can be interesting. Okay, cool. So what I'd encourage you to do is, I believe the presentation deck is made available to you through the webinar platform, and please feel free to reach out to us at you can reach out to me directly at riaz.nakuda@veridion.com, or at if you're interested in speaking and going through a deeper demonstration, our commercial team would be happy to facilitate that, and we can be reached at sales@veridion.com. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and participation, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar.